Oh, thank you. Okay, so we'll get started. So this is Design Your Life, How to Have Prototyping Conversations. And this is a wonderful resource and just a wonderful way to find more resources. Um, and so to start off, this is a Design Your Life presentation, which we use design thinking, which is an iterative process of building your way forward with a bias to action, often when you have little or no initial information. And so within that, there are 5 design thinking mindsets. It's just how designers think differently. And so first is radical collaboration. I'm sorry, that font is really light. I thought I had fixed that. But so the need for, you need radical collaboration in design thinking because designing is a collaborative process, and many of the best ideas are going to come from other people. And what's radical is that you want a diverse team with different experiences, perspective, points of views, and even beliefs. And then we have reframing. And so this is how designers get unstuck. Reframing enables designers to examine ways to look at problems differently or through a new lens in order to increase the opportunity for innovation. And then we have curiosity. This makes everything new. It invites exploration. It's an open approach to learning more. And when designers look through the lens of curiosity and not through judgment or rushing to solution, you're going to hear them say things like, tell me more, or they'll ask open-ended questions to get at the needs and wants of what works, what doesn't, and what's missing. And then there's mindfulness of the process. And so it's important to be aware of where you are in the design thinking process because it informs your approach. It's also important to be aware of your own process. Are you rushing to a solution? Are you blocked? Are you energized by certain activities and drained by others? And so being mindful of the process is key to the journey of a productive life design. And then finally is bias towards action. And this is the heart of design thinking. You're committed to building your way forward. And designers try new things. They test out ideas, failing often until they find what works and what solves the problem. And they embrace change. They're not attached to one particular outcome. Also in the design thinking process is the framework, which was made famous by David Kelly. He's the founder of the design school at Stanford University and also the product design firm IDEO. And so each of these steps, there's accept. This is a step that is actually added in the life design thinking process. It's not in the traditional design thinking process because it's important to accept where you are when you're designing your life. For example, once you make a decision, you have to accept and move forward, because if you just are constantly like, oh, did I make the right decision? Is this where I want to be? Then you're not going to be happy and you're not going to be able to move forward. And so understanding that this is where you are, this is your life, and then ideate solutions based on where you are and maybe have some trade-offs. For example, you might want to train for the Olympics, but that would mean maybe moving to Denver and your family is in Amarillo. And so it's like, can we do that? Can our family be okay with that? And next is empathize. This process starts with need finding, which is grounded in empathy. It means the ability to share the feelings and perspectives of another person. And so in the case of product design, you're empathizing with the user and trying to understand what they might need. But in the case of life design, the user is you. And so we're doing a lot of self-assessments to give you the ability to empathize, that's such a hard word, with where you are and where you might want to be. And so next is define. And so designers love problems. And so in design thinking, we put as much emphasis on the problem or problem finding as problem solving. And so in defining the problem, it's all about scoping the shape and size and characteristics of the problem that you're trying to solve. After that is ideate. And so designers love to ideate broadly and wildly. They love crazy ideas, the wild ideas, because they know that the number one enemy of creativity is judgment. And so they use ideation techniques that will help our brains get past the tendency to be critical and leap to judgment. Oh, that's not a good idea. Oh, that's not possible. So jumping beyond that and then just going for volume, because you choose better when you have lots of good ideas to choose from. And so then there's prototyping, which we're going to get more into in a minute. So once you've narrowed down some possible ideas, it's time to pick one and build a physical prototype. So in product design, we're building our way forward. We're failing fast to learn and iterate and get the data we need for the next prototype. So again, it's an iterative process where literally hundreds of prototypes can be made to get to the ideal solution. And so life design products are designed to ask a question and get some data about something you're interested in. So will I like management consulting or product management better? Prototypes will help you experience these alternatives without committing to join a company so that you can make a better decision about what you want to pursue. And then the next step is test. And so once you have a prototype, you have to test to see if it works. In product design, you'll take the prototype to the user, have them use the product, and then give you feedback. And once the user sees like that rough physical version of the idea, they'll usually say, oh, that's not quite right. That's not really what I pictured. If it's going to do this, it should do it like this. And so now that you have something to react to, they can envision how they're going to use it. And then we're back to need finding and refining our definition of the problem. In life design, the process is similar. You can test management consulting and product management by prototyping. A life design prototype could be an internship. It could be job shadowing a product manager for the day or doing an informational interview with a couple of product managers. And then there's something important to note this, the process may look linear on the screen, but it's actually an iterative one. So we're building and then we're testing and then we're getting feedback, we're ideating again, we're redefining. And so you might go back and forth and all over the place. And so just understanding that it's not just a straight line and done. So next is just a little extra information. So prototyping is where we are today. In order to do the best design thinking, it's important to know, again, that these steps, like I said, they go back and forth. And so don't be afraid to go backwards because it will help you move forward. And so there's this dysfunctional belief that if I comprehensively research the best data for all aspects of my plan, I'll be fine. And we want y'all to reframe that as I should build prototypes to explore questions about my alternatives. And so do you have any questions so far?
No, sounds good.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so prototyping. We believe that anything can be prototyping. And so when it comes to designing your life, how does prototyping tie in? How can you use that for conversations ranging from employers or professors or ways to learn more about future careers? And so we don't mean making something to check whether your solution is right. And we also don't mean just making one thing. Prototyping the life design way is all about asking good questions, outing our hidden biases and assumptions, iterating rapidly, and creating momentum for a path that we'd like to try out. This should be designed to ask a question and get some data about something that you're interested in. And so good prototypes will isolate one aspect of a program and design an experience that allows you to try out some versions of a potentially interesting future. Prototypes also help you visualize alternative ways in a very experiential way, so like internships. And prototypes are a great way to start a conversation, and more often than not, one thing will typically lead to another. And they also allow you to try and fail rapidly without over-investing in a path before you have decided if that's really what you want to do. And so prototyping allows you to imagine your future as if you were already living it. And so what can prototyping do for you? So creating new experiences through prototyping will give you an opportunity to understand what a new career path might feel like, even if it's only for an hour or maybe for a day or two. And prototyping helps you involve others early and helps build a community of folks who are interested in your journey and your life design. Prototypes are a great way to start a conversation. And then again, more often than not, one thing typically leads to another. That's a good networking opportunity, a relationship, a mentor, maybe someone who can help you find a job in their fields or area. And then, like I said, prototypes frequently turn into unexpected opportunities. They help serendipity happen. And finally, prototypes allow you to try and fail rapidly without over-investing in a path before you have any data. Again, just going back to that idea of you're not so sure about it yet, and so you don't want to put too much time or money into it before you know for sure. A prototype is not a thought experiment. It must involve a physical experience in the world. And so the data to make good decisions are found in the real world, and prototyping is the best way to engage that world and get the data you need to move forward. And it's also about building empathy and understanding. So we talked about empathy earlier. Everyone's on a journey, and your prototype encounters with others will reveal their life designs and give you ideas for your own life. So we prototype to ask good questions, to create those experiences, to reveal our assumptions so that we can get beyond those. Again, to fail fast so that we can fail forward and keep building forward. And then build empathy for ourselves and for others. And so once you accept that this is really the only way to get the data you need, prototyping will become an integral part of your life design process. And not only is it true that doing prototyping is a good idea, it's equally true that not doing prototyping is bad and sometimes it costs the idea. So there are stories of people who, there's a young woman who wanted to start a restaurant. She loved to bake, she loved organizing that kind of stuff. And she started a restaurant. And then she's doing all this work and she hated the actual, like once it was flowing and it's being successful, but she hated it. And so she sold it and started a business where she helped others start restaurants because that's the aspect she loved about it, but she didn't like the actual running of it. And so had she prototyped that, she could have saved her initially a lot of time and money and stress of having to run the restaurant after it was created. Okay, I think my screen froze. Okay, there we go. So now that we have an idea of what prototyping is, we're gonna do a quick, hopefully fun activity to get an idea of different ways to prototype. And so I'm gonna throw out a random career and then we can ideate and brainstorm together and see what are some things that if someone were interested in that career, what could they do to see if that's something that they would want to live, like if that's a life they would want to live. And so let's say we'll start off with a lawyer. What is something someone could do to see if they wanted to be a lawyer?
They could attend court. You could just sit in courtrooms.
Yeah,
I
no,
thought that, well, that was actually pretty interesting. And then, well, I could personally just go meet with a lawyer since I work with lawyers.
oh yeah,
So
so I forgot to ask you what's your life? What do you do?
I'm currently a homeowners association manager. So I manage about 14 communities. I'm not a huge fan of it, which is why I'm in school and taking this course. I
Yeah,
hate
yeah,
much of it. But
that's
I mean, I
awesome.
work with different attorneys just for advice and draft documents and things like that. So
That's awesome. And what are you studying?
I'm getting the MBA in computer information system.
Oh, okay, that's so cool. Very awesome. Yeah, so that's good. A lawyer, that's a good one. What about a coffee shop owner?
Um, I think it would be good to meet with local coffee shops, like the ones that are owned by individuals, and just ask them, can you have like a sit down with them and talk to them about their process and what they like and dislike, to see if you would actually like to be, and ask them what their everyday life is like, because I think
Yeah.
sometimes people forget to ask what the everyday day-to-day aspects are of something, because you think the overall picture sounds great.
Yeah, that's a great point. And like, yeah, you don't know like what's every day look like. And some of the answers are like, well, it's different every day. And so you got to dig deeper and be like, okay, what is different? Like what things happen? What will I like? What will I dislike? That's awesome. How about a National Geographic photographer?
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe go to Powder Canyon.
Right.
Are you in the Amarillo area? Are you far away?
I'm in Austin.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh yeah, so there are lots of fun places there. You could at least get maybe not the animals, but the scenery. That's
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, so are there specific things you're interested in, or maybe brainstorming we could do together for things you want to try?
I want to figure out if I want to be like project manager or program manager, things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so do you know any people in the area or have any connections to that?
I actually don't. My
Okay.
sister is a project manager, so I mean I have her, but
Yeah, that's
besides that,
awesome.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So we'll keep going, and then after this, we could maybe talk more if you have time about different ideas we could come up with for that.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So this also what's coming up might be helpful for you. So prototype conversations, like the life design interview, and so this is also known as the informational interview, which is kind of what you talked about with the coffee shop owners, just kind of asking them about what they do, what their life is like. And so This is probably the simplest prototype, which is a life design interview. It's simple but extremely powerful. It just means getting someone's story, and not just anyone, and not just any story. Of course, you want to talk to someone who is either doing and living what you're contemplating, or has real experience and expertise in an area that you might have questions about. And so the story you're after is their personal story, of how that person got to be doing the thing he or she is doing, or how they got that expertise, and what it's really like to do what they do, and maybe like what was their education like, what were the steps after, who did they talk to, what kind of experiences did they gain. And so you want to hear what the person who does what you might someday want to do loves and hates about their jobs. And you want to ask multiple people, because you might say you want to be a dentist and you talk to 5 dentists. 3 of them might absolutely love their job and 2 of them might absolutely hate it. And so you want to get the different perspectives and make sure you're getting kind of all sides of the story. And then, like you were talking about, you want to know what their day looks like. And then you want to see if you can imagine yourself doing that job and loving it for months and years on end. And so in addition to asking people about their work and their life, you'll also be able to find out how they got there, what their career path was. And most people, this is important to know, most people fail not for lack of talent, but for lack of imagination. And so you can get a lot of this information just by sitting down with someone and getting his or her story. And you also get the benefit of an inside perspective, and you may connect to opportunities you couldn't have seen from the outside or without having that conversation. And so that's what the life design interview is. And it's all about the mindsets. Uh, and there's important things to be sure you do and do not do with a life design interview. So do treat it like a conversation, because that's literally what it is. You're after an interesting story and a personal connection. And do come curious. That's one of the mindsets is curiosity. This is major. This is like a major part of it. You want to be sincere. You want to have good questions about their life and their experience, and you want to gain insights into their successes and their failures, how they got there, and then what's important to them. And curiosity will lead to an authentically engaged conversation, and it will open the door for them to get curious about you. And so this may lead to an opportunity for them to see what kinds of work resonates with you and what community you want to be a part of. And then a couple of don'ts. Don't treat it like an interview, like a job interview, because it's not that. Don't even call it that when you're asking to talk with them. You might call and ask them something like, "Hi, Anna, I'm so glad to connect with you. John said you were just the person I needed to speak with. I'm very impressed with what I know of your work, and I'd love to hear some of your story. Might you have 30 minutes to spare at a time and place convenient to you where I can buy you a cup of coffee and hear more about your experience?" And so mentioning that connection is super important, because it'll make the difference. It'll eliminate the creep. It'll be like, oh, they know this person. Okay, cool. They're probably a good person then. And it's also not a trick. Don't treat a life design interview like a trick to get a job. Even if they happen to have an opening, you really don't want them to see you as a potential candidate at that time, because then the whole time they're just going to be judging you for if you fit that role, rather than spending time telling you their story and getting to know you better. And then you don't want to talk the whole time. You're there to talk to them, and to learn about them. And then if they open the door for you to talk about yourself, then you want to talk about yourself and like kind of open that door, get to know each other both ways, because they might be curious about you, but like don't force that upon them. And then it's important to know that this is also beneficial to the interviewee, the person who you're talking with. A good life design interview helps them, because they get to not only discuss their life and work with someone who's curious about their experience and their values, and their expertise, but they get the pleasure of talking with someone who is genuinely interested in what they do. And that's what makes life design interviews and informational interviews super awesome, and hopefully generally easy to get. It's because people like to talk about themselves, and sometimes it's awkward to just like open that door, but when someone's like, "Hi, I want to hear your story," it's like, "Oh my gosh, someone's interested in me." And so it might open some doors that are really great. And then so how oops, I think I skipped one. um, how you can do it well. So first you want to do your homework, research them on LinkedIn, learn about the professional that you're going to interview, and then what questions do you have about their life and their work. And so you want to come prepared, decide the questions you most need answered in person, questions that you were not able to answer just from your research. And then as you're planning the informational interview, consider these things. The things I just mentioned. And then it can also inform where you begin. So I'd like to know more about this occupation, or I'd like to know about more about this organization. They may have information about the field you're interested in learning about, and so you want to be sure you do your homework on that. Try to meet in person. Of course, right now we're in COVID, and so in person might not always be possible. People might be more hesitant, or if they're older, they're like, I'm not really doing this stuff in person. Um, and so, at the very least, do Zoom so that you can get that face to face connection. Try to avoid a phone call. Just because, again, when you have that face to face interaction, there's more of a personal connection. And then if you are meeting in person, always buy the coffee or the lunch. They're giving you your time, and so paying is a good show of that appreciation. And then ask who else they would recommend you talk with. They may be able to connect you with others who may also have the opportunities for you and good learning outcomes. And then this is so important, write a thank you note. And do so within a day or so of the conversation. This is a good practice to get in the habit of doing anyway if you haven't already. Um, just for any time someone gives you their time, just writing a thank you note is super good practice. And handwritten is the best, but email also works if you're unable to get an address, for example. And then within it, you want to address specific things they spoke about that stood out to you or that you found useful or interesting. So I appreciated how passionate you became when talking about the community work you're able to do within your company. An environment that encourages community involvement and engagement is something I hope to be able to find and continue in my future, and so on. And then if they ask to keep up with your progress, be sure to let them know how things are going for you, whether that's through the email or LinkedIn. And so before, during, and after, talk to everyone you know about your area of interest to see who they know. So like your sister, for example, she might know others that you could connect with. And then the people you already know, even those in the fields that are not in your career path, can lead you to others who might be good interviews. This will include family, friends, faculty, coaches, former employers, maybe even your favorite customer if you have a job where that kind of interaction happens. Um, you can also identify WT alum to contact. Once a buff, always a buff. And then LinkedIn is also a terrific place to find appropriate individuals to reach out to. If you're not familiar with the platform, we do have a LinkedIn workshop on our website and our YouTube page that might be super beneficial for you. And then you want to get contact information for your first interview, email or their phone number, whichever you prefer. And know that you might have to try both to make contact with them initially, because some people might not answer unfamiliar phone numbers and so on. And then be sure again that you've researched this person and his or her organization. You don't want to be caught in a conversation without having done your research. And then develop a brief intro, which is like an elevator pitch of sorts, just to introduce yourself to the potential interviewees. And that would include your name, your classification at WT, or when you'll graduate, your degree, your major, and then share your career goals or what it is that you're wanting to learn more about. And then give a brief overview of your experience. Keep it short, but include personal details to encourage the reader or listener, if you call, to want to meet with you. And then choose questions that are appropriate for your intended occupation and where you are in your studies and decision-making process. You'll want to ask questions about the work, how to get started, and perhaps specific job search strategies. We also have, let me see if I can, well, we have a link on our website, and so I'll shoot you an email after this workshop just with all these links so that you have easy access to them, but that also would be helpful. And then you'll want to contact the person, of course. Let them know how you got his or her name. My professor, Dr. Jim Johnson, gave me your name. If you're calling, ensure the contact has time to talk right now. Do you have a couple minutes to talk? And then make sure to emphasize that you're only looking for information, not a job. And have your calendar ready so that you can go ahead and schedule that mutually convenient time for 20 to 30 minutes. And then don't expect them to be able to talk right then, but also be ready to ask your questions just in case the person says, oh, it's a good time right now. So you might call and say, hi, my name is Abby Betts. I'm a junior majoring in broadcast journalism at West Texas A&M University. As part of my career research, I've been researching occupations of interest, and I'm interested in exploring work as an investigative journalist. Would you be willing to meet with me to answer a few questions about the work that you do? And then what would be a good day and time for you to meet with me for about 30 minutes tops? And then, of course, be respectful of their time, arrive on time, and keep track so you don't go over the 30 minutes. If they want to keep going over the 30 minutes, that's okay. But just if they're like, okay, our 30 minutes is up, peace out, be respectful of that. Dress neatly and professionally as you might for an actual job interview, and then be ready to answer questions and take notes. Have your questions printed out as long as or along with a notepad just to record what they say. Um, and again, oops, skipped a slide. Be clear that you're not there um, for a job interview, and that you're just there to get some information about them, just to hear their story and learn more about what they do, that kind of stuff. So again, if you didn't on the phone, you'll provide your brief intro, your elevator pitch that you developed earlier, and also understand that you might not get to ask all of the questions that you've made the list of, because sometimes the conversation just flows naturally and you want to let it flow because you might get more information and they might provide perspective and just responses that you hadn't thought of to ask about. And so you want to get that information. And then ask them for permission to contact them in the future with other questions. Ask them if they'd be willing to look over your resume down the road as you begin applying for jobs in that field or career area. And then again, ask for other people's names to contact. And it's so much easier to call the next person if you can say, hey, Brad Johnson recommended that I visit with you. And of course, again, follow up with that thank you note or that email. And just for your records, keep a record and a list of who you talked to, when, what you learned, and then what questions you have after that conversation. And then again, going back to LinkedIn, if you haven't already, connect with them on LinkedIn and follow their company and or professional organizations that they may have mentioned, and then let them know when you follow up on their advice and if you had success in it, like, hey, you told me to do this and I did it and it really helped me to be successful in this. And that is just nice to hear from someone that you had a conversation with. And you might also gain a future mentor by doing this activity. And so just some final thoughts. All 5 of the mindsets are very valuable in the life design or the informational interview. And so you want to be curious and genuinely interested in the person you're going to interview and learn their life story and their work story. And you might utilize radical collaboration with the people you know to find the people to interview. And then down the road, you may collaborate with your interviewee, whether they're as your mentor or maybe in landing a role or finding other connections. But no matter what, we want you to be mindful of the process throughout it all. Why are you doing this? How can it help you? What are you truly searching for? And then reframing may also be used as you reframe your initial thoughts about certain roles and companies and people and maybe even what you want and what you want to pursue. And it's okay for your perspective to change throughout this process. And then finally, you want to have a bias toward action through this all. Because you have to do the research, you have to take the action to do that research and then go out and find the interviews and talk to the people. And so don't be afraid to jump out there and just get started. And so I hope this has helped you to understand life design, prototyping and informational interviews a little bit more and has encouraged you to get out there and learn more. So what questions do you have for me?
It was a good presentation. I don't really have any questions.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Awesome. And so I was going to tell you, so LinkedIn would probably be a great resource. If you don't already have one, go ahead and make one and then stalk people that are program managers. And it's like a weird time because it's like you might not get to meet in person with them, but it might work better. It might work better because people might be more inclined. Oh yeah, I'm super familiar with Zoom now, so just message them on LinkedIn. Hey, would you be willing to have a Zoom conversation with me? I'm a student. I'm looking to change my career path. I'd love to hear your story. And so hopefully that could open more doors since we're all hopefully a little bit more Zoom proficient these days.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, and then of course, like your sister, I feel like sometimes with those situations, it's weird to like talk to your like, let me hear your story because it's like, well, I know your story a lot, and they
Mhm.
might not be as open, like not that they're not open to share with you, but it's like, well, you already know everything, and so, but using her to, of course, to find other people might work great.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm trying to, I think that's all the stuff I have. But hopefully if you're able to set any of these up, I'd love to hear how they go, and I'll shoot you an email with my links and stuff. And then we also do career coaching appointments. So if you're interested in talking to someone, me or anyone in our office, just about other things you can do, or even just like follow up, like I did an informational interview. This is what I have. So now what do I do?
Mhm.
We're happy to help.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having this.
Yeah, have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.